Hello and welcome to the Ghibli Rewatch series of the Overly Animated Podcast, where we'll be going through every Studio Ghibli movie chronologically from the beginning. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Aly Martin.
Hello.
And April Collins.
Hi there.
The Ghibli Rewatch series join us in rewatching or watching for the first time all the Studio Ghibli movies now that they're available for streaming for the first time on HBO Max in the United States and Netflix in most of the rest of the world. New Ghibli podcasts will be up every Wednesday to go through the whole catalog chronologically at overlyanimated.com. Find all of our contact information there. I'm a Ghibli expert, be joined by co-hosts with a variety of Ghibli experience as we go through the whole catalog. Today is Howl's Moving Castle. Very exciting, beloved movie. Woo! We're excited to talk about. Full spoilers for Howl's Moving Castle. Make sure you have seen this movie before you listen further. Minor spoilers for the rest of the Ghibli movies. We'll be discussing both the subbed and dubbed version, so whichever you have seen is fine. Time for Howl's Moving Castle, our next Hayao Miyazaki movie. We're coming off of Spirited Away, and now it is 2004 when this movie is released. Howl's Moving Castle, loosely based on the 1986 novel of the same name by Diana Wynne Jones. Miyazaki, maybe similar to Kiki, took over production not right in the beginning. So this was originally intended to be directed by Mamoru Hosoda, who's made a name for himself, especially recently, as a prominent anime director in Japan. But they didn't like the direction. Miyazaki took over. We've seen this before. So now he makes this next major project. This is coming off of Spirited Away, the biggest movie ever in Japan. Of course, the next Miyazaki movie going to be big, but this was definitely lived up for it. It is still, as of now, the sixth highest grossing movie ever in Japan, Howl's Moving Castle. So this was a big success in Japan. And then also this was a big success in internationally too, because his renown has spread after Spirited Away, and this was very successful all over the world. So Howl's Moving Castle, yes, big fantasy movie for Miyazaki, coming off of Spirited Away. A lot of people have attachments to this one who are our age. A lot of interesting things to talk about this one. Aly, what is your history with this movie, and what do you think of it?
I think I watched it for the first time just before graduating high school, and at the time I really liked it. I still really like it, but I think about it differently now, I guess. I remember my friend who read the book, and I know nothing about the book, told me that it's not the same, and she said that Sophie has more agency, were her words, in the book. So since then I was like, I don't know if I like this movie as much, but I did rewatch it again a bunch of times and today, and I still really enjoy it a lot. I think Sophie's character is, I don't know about necessary, but the way she's depicted is, I think, done very well. We're going to get into it later, but I like her a lot. In terms of the female protagonists that Ghibli presents, I think she's definitely in the top 10, but I don't know if there's more than that I can name. Animation is great. I think this was one of the ones that stood out to me, that goes after Spirited Away in terms of crazy sequences that make me feel like I'm not on the earthly plane just watching them. Music is also fantastic. I really liked it. Okay.
Fan of Howl's, not on the earthly plane. Yeah, I think that sounded right to me about this feeling of some of these things. There's one scene when they're above the earth, so literally.
Yeah, there's a few of those actually.
Probably a few of them. Yeah, a lot of flying and okay.
And not portals, but black holes. I don't know. It's weird.
Okay, we'll talk about all that. April, what's your history with Howl's Moving Castle? What do you think of the movie?
So I could have sworn that I had seen this previously because this came out just as I was getting into high school. And so I think that's whenever my whole anime thing started to taper off a little bit, just because I was focusing on school and everything like that. And so and I when I started watching this, I was like, none of this is familiar, so I might as well have been watching it for the first time. And I won't lie, it took me I started it because I totally agree with you, Aly, about how it kind of takes you off the earthly plane kind of thing. And so I started watching it, and then 20 minutes in, I was like, oh my god, I'm not even paying attention anymore, but I'm fully engrossed in this movie. And so I just started all over again. And then that happened to me again 40 minutes into it, and I was just like, what is happening to me during this movie? Because it's not like a bad movie in any way, shape, or form. I was just like very distracted by what was going on and what I was seeing, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Distracting is a good way to describe it, though. That's a good point.
Yeah, like I even told you guys, I was like, this is the third time I've restarted this movie. But I definitely liked Sophie as a character. You know, she's a really good female protagonist. I mean, I thought it was beautiful. I thought the music was like paired with it nicely. You kind of got a lot of like Kiki's vibes in terms of like the music, like because there was like I don't know what the song was, but I was just like, am I watching Kiki's right now? Because I'm not like so. So there's those things are definitely going for it. Like I guess I don't know if maybe like I just missed some of the themes or I enjoyed the movie and I thought it was really like well done, but I feel like I lost the plot and I was just like, what happened in this movie? Like at the end of it. So, but we could talk more about that later.
Okay, we'll talk about that. I don't think you lost it. Well, that's
Okay.
that's the thing we'll talk about. Okay. Kiki. That's definitely a lot of comparisons to Kiki, another European-inspired fantasy world from Miyazaki. Similar production kind of history, maybe the sound, the look. Steampunkiness, maybe a little similar. So I think there's a lot of similarities. So I must have seen this pretty early on with all the Ghibli movies, just because it was so prominent around that time. I don't have strong associations with Howl's. I know, and I definitely want to acknowledge later on in the podcast, a lot of people I think we know do have strong associations with Howl's, especially like women who were growing up around when this movie came out in America. I think it's a very prominent movie for a lot of people. For me, wasn't one of the ones that I was super attached to with Miyazaki movies. I kind of always had the thought like, this is a good movie, but not necessarily as good as any of the other Miyazaki movies we've covered thus far in the Ghibli Rewatch series. That's kind of my impression going into this rewatch. I would feel similarly, I think rewatching it here. But I think like you can forget, I think, how magical this movie is. I think magical, like similar to Spirited Away. This is, coming right off of Spirited Away. I don't think this movie is Spirited Away, but I think I felt similarly emotionally watching it a lot of times as I do watching Spirited Away. And that's like, for me, its biggest strength is just it really does capture, even if it's not as much of a complete unit as Spirited Away, I mean, on what is, but it evokes the same sense of magic and these crazy emotions that I think you can feel from Miyazaki at his most magical. A few points in the middle of the movie, I was like, got a little bit, I guess, deja vu-ness. Like I didn't remember these scenes from this movie because I hadn't rewatched recently, and I was just like, oh man, this scene, like, wow, I have like strong emotional associations with this scene. Like this is really evoking a lot from the past for me, and then experiencing again was a pretty strong, I think, experience. So I think that was like the best part of rewatching it now. And if you haven't watched it in a while, I think maybe you could evoke similar feelings from someone who's watched it a long time ago. My experience kind of with Howl's is like, I'm kind of bored in the beginning. And
okay,
then,
but I'm not the only one.
Then there's like an hour, which I think is like pure magic of this movie. Love it. Then the third act, which speaking of Kiki's, this is actually my biggest comparison to Kiki's. Miyazaki sometimes has had problems with third acts. Like my least favorite part of Kiki's is the third act, the ending. I think this movie has a final act that does not make any sense, and that is what you'll frequently hear criticism wise of Howl's, is that the plot is really not there.
Thank goodness. Because I was like gonna feel so bad if I was the only person who was like,
I'm like kind of shocked. It's still the 6th highest grossing film in Japan, and it was apparently like a flop when it came out or something.
It was definitely not a flop. This is financially successful across the board, especially in Japan. I think people did really like this, but there was some criticisms. We'll talk about that. There's some people at the time when it came out who were like, this is a lot worse narratively than Miyazaki's previous movies, but mostly I think it has always had very positive reception. But, I think as you get into, like, the Ghibli big fans, you'll hear a lot of, like, Howl's crit about the plot of this movie. So that's something we'll want to address for sure. And I don't think it's necessarily even in-depth criticism. It's just, like, the ending of this movie, that it doesn't make sense. And if you're looking at this as a strong, like, narrative script base, like, that's not what this is. It's going to be a lot more of an emotional thematic experience. And I think if you want to connect on it to mostly that level, it is, which I think I was able to watching it, and I always have been able to. I think it's there. But ultimately, I think it probably, because of some of the issues plot-wise, which is, I think, shockingly are not there for previous Miyazaki movies. We can talk about that a little bit. I do think it maybe feels like a little bit of a step down from some of his previous works. But I also think it has this, like, magic, which is not always there for his previous movies, and is particularly intense, I think, in the middle of this movie, and at the end too. There's some great scenes at the end. It's just, all tied together, you're left kind of wondering what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of, sometimes it feels like too much, but that's also how I felt about Spirited Away, and I still enjoyed it. So
Spirited Away, I think one of the biggest differences is it retains a strong sense of logic in terms of what is happening,
quote unquote logic,
and which is interesting, because Spirited Away has stuff that it's all random stuff that is not in depth, but it's all really tied together very tightly narratively. And then you get to Howl's, and you get a lot of stuff kind of thrown in at the end that does not have that same. And you look at, and they're maybe not that far off when you think about it, just because it's not like Miyazaki does not have these narratively driven movies. We can talk about this first since we're on the topic. Miyazaki's Process, as far as I know, Howl's probably makes a lot more sense when you think of it like this. He does not do a script. Like, he goes, he makes an image board. He just draws. He starts by drawing key images from, like, that he's inspired to draw about the story he wants to tell. He starts to flesh it out, adds the image board, and then he goes straight into storyboards. Then he starts storyboarding scenes straight from his image board. So I've always been really impressed that Miyazaki is capable of having these really narratively excellent films, at the very least narratively competent. I think it's more of a shock that it's taken this long for him to get to a movie that doesn't really make sense. Like, how does he have 10 movies before this with, like, kind of no script? I think it's pretty impressive. And it's a movie he takes over later in production. I think it's pretty easy to see, once you think of it in that sense, how it kind of arrives at this point, considering his creative process. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely something you'll hear a lot about is narratively. But also, I do want to emphasize, like, I do think this is a very beloved movie, and I think a lot of people have strong associations with this movie, loved it growing up. I think people were really into the Sophie Howl romance, into Howl as a character when they're kids.
God, we have to get into Howl.
I feel like that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I could see people being very, very into it, and, like, I guess, like, one of, like, the memories I have of this movie is, like, it's from 3-ish years ago. And I had a coworker, and for Halloween, she dressed up as Sophie. And because she's like, I loved this movie growing up. And I was like, wow, how old am I? Like, so.
Was she like old lady
old Sophie? Yeah, or young Sophie?
Yeah, she was old lady Sophie.
Yes, okay. Queen.
That's probably the way to go. I think that's the costume.
I'm proud of her.
Yeah. That aspect, Sophie is like an old woman for most of the movie. Definitely a prominent thing we're going to talk about. And kind of the anti-warness of the movie. That's another prominent thing. Let me read talking about the overall quality. Here's bringing a quote from Susan Napier. Starts negatively, gets positively. Her just citing people's reactions. This is from Susan Napier's novel Miyazakiworld, which I frequently reference on the podcast. She says, admittedly, some critics in Japan and elsewhere had issues with its quality, finding it hard to understand. More recently, Shunsuke Sugita has called the movie a failure. To these critics, Miyazaki's single-minded portrait of melodrama combined with war was rough-edged work, difficult to comprehend, awkwardly tied together, and with a forced and artificial happy ending. On the whole, she says, on the whole, I tend to agree with Seiji Kano's positive assessment of Howl as a work more poetic than narrative, stringing together a tapestry of images to create a multifaceted whole. Overall, it remains an idiosyncratic and appealing creation, ambitious and angry, while offering indelible visions of solace, beauty, and love.
Accurate.
So, I think Susan Napier sums it up well when she says, you got to look at it more poetic than narrative.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
a tapestry of images, which I think all of Miyazaki's movies are, but you might most cite this movie as a tapestry of images with so many kind of disparate, visually iconic scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aly, what do you think of the criticism aspect of this and the overall assessment?
I mean, now, having watched it just today, I'm tempted to go with Sugita's criticism. Not that it's a failure, but that especially the happy ending feels really like it's cringe to me now. Like I really enjoyed it the first time watching it when I was like 18, but now I'm like, this is so stupid. Like normally I'm a fan of that kind of trope, also especially if it's not a hetero romance, but like here it feels just kind of gross. I want to know how the book went when I look at this movie, and I kind of like I don't have the energy to read the book, but I'm curious because I know that like Sophie, like I also appreciate how sassy, for lack of a better term, she is in this, and she like doesn't take anybody's garbage. She's like, get over yourself, but apparently she's more like that in the books, so I want to just read that. But I do agree that it's definitely more like not flowery, like he says, poetic than narrative, which I don't think it's a bad thing, but you do have a point that it's like really not what we're used to with Miyazaki, because he does like, not that the narratives are like kind of shoved down your throat with like anti-war what have you, but it feels less like in your face in this movie. But again, I don't think that's bad. It's kind of jarring.
Yeah, I think that the one of the most potentially hard to palate scenes for some people is the very end when the king's magician Suleiman, she says, "Oh, I guess we shouldn't do this war anymore." like
what changed your mind? Are you serious? Just because you had your dog stalking them and you were watching them on your crystal? Just like you watch a K-drama and you're like, "Wow, I'm gonna go like donate to charity." What?
I think it feels silly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how to feel about the turnip prince guy either. Like, everyone's in love with Sophie. Even the fire is in love with Sophie. It's weird. It's just weird.
The turnip scarecrow comes to life, and he's like,
weird.
"Oh, I'm a prince. Oh, and I'm going to end the war, too."
Like, just magically, we're going to end the war.
And she starts kissing everybody out of nowhere, and that's
she kisses like everyone,
some sort of weird Deus Ex Machina, but it's weird.
She's spreading the love, I guess.
It's weird. I mean, I appreciate that she's like grown like enough confidence to be like, well, I mean, I don't know, she has like this nurturing characteristic throughout the movie, but it's weird. I don't know, it's weird. That's all I have.
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely seems silly looking at the movie as a narrative, but if you're going to look at it more as thematic or poetic, then I do think you can see this ending earned with the war ending and characters kind of being persuaded by seeing these scenes of love and family. I think that's probably the generous assessment for that. Personally, I don't see the anti-war aspect even potentially as one of the stronger aspects of the movie regardless, but I do think like that ending definitely works a lot better if you're not viewing it strictly narratively.
I wish I had known that it was like an anti-war movie before I watched it, because then like I feel like everything would have made more sense.
Like I want you to read that quote about Miyazaki not showing up to the
Okay, so let's talk about that. So let's talk about this as an anti-war movie. So Spirited Away, huge success, nominated for an Oscar, wins an Oscar, which it's still the only foreign language movie to win the Best Animated Oscar. It's crazy at this time, which people don't even know like Miyazaki to the extent that they do now. He's like bursting onto the scene. It wins. Miyazaki is not there. He did not show up to the Oscars. Now, granted, it is very far away. But he had gone to the U.S. before, and he did not here. He says, now we're in the modern period where I can like actually cite like interviews that are still up on the online, so that's cool. So this online, yeah. This is from Devin Gordon's Newsweek interview with Miyazaki, a positive pessimist. Miyazaki got asked, "Why didn't you show up?" He says, "Actually, your country had just started the war against Iraq, and I had a great deal of rage about that. So I felt some hesitation about the award. In fact, I had just started to make Howl's Moving Castle, so the film is profoundly affected by the war in Iraq."
That really makes me appreciate the war aspect even more, because like April said, like I had no idea this was a war film. Like sure, you have the propaganda in the background, but again, it's not as in your face as like Grave of the Fireflies or what's the other one? Wind Rises, something like that.
Right, so
So
you talking about Wind Rises. I think. I mean, it's easy. I think you want to bring in, and Napier does this in her chapter. You want to start to bring in Ponyo and Wind Rises as this kind of later Miyazaki films when you're talking about Howl's Moving Castle. Ponyo relevant because like we're gonna definitely have to keep in mind with that discussion the visual over narrative kind of aspect that he has in mind at this point in his career. Like,
God, that movie.
Similar to Takahata, it definitely goes visual over narrative later in life. I think this is a common thing that they're sharing, probably influenced by each other. But yeah, I mean, he also has these very strong anti-war sensibilities, which factor into Wind Rises and definitely this movie, which Miyazaki characterizes Howl's Moving Castle as a reaction to the Iraq War. So
that is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, that's just like, oh, why didn't you come to the Oscars? Because y'all started a war. Like that's a move. I like it.
It's a great move. I can't believe he did that, but I hope more people do that.
I think it's an iconic Miyazaki move, not showing up the Oscars, talking like this. This is, now we're, like we've been saying, we're into curmudgeonly Miyazaki now, and this is one of his biggest power moves. We love it. But thinking about Howl's Moving Castle as an anti-war movie, so there's a war that frames the entire movie, and I think that you might not think of it like as this like the whole movie is about like war is bad, like Grave of the Fireflies. Like probably that's not what he's going for, but it is a big backdrop for the film. We can bring in Susan Napier, who maybe explains some aspects of this a little better about this, especially how Howl is, I think, largely supposed to be an anti-war character. Napier says, in his depiction of Howl as a fighter and in his magnification of the war, Miyazaki differs strikingly from the original book, though it must be acknowledged that the war is presented in a curiously offhand manner. In contrast to its charmingly detailed domestic scenes of hanging laundry or cooking breakfast, the movie gets rid of the bloody reality of war and instead offers a distanced perspective. While the director includes his trademarked original flying machines, this time with memorably animalistic or even insect-like qualities, these machines are noticeable for their lack of any human presence. This is also true of the victims. Miyazaki presents numerous aerial depictions of bombings, showing a night sky full of flames and houses on fire. These images suggest the fire bombings of Tokyo that he witnessed as a child, and also the bombing of Kobe, depicted in his partner Takahata's celebrated film Grave of the Fireflies. Unlike in Grave, however, the camera never turns earthward. We are not privy to the life and death struggles of the bomb victims, and can only presume that they occur. The most personal aspect of war, therefore, becomes Howl's blistering anger embodied in his risky metamorphosis into a non-human creature. His non-human aspect is ironic. It is clear that he is the only participant in combat who actually cares about humanity, a compassion expressed in his lamentation to Calcifer, that the other warring magicians have forgotten how to cry. Love Napier's characterization of this movie as being very distant compared to something like Grave of the Fireflies, which I personally find to be a lot more effective as an anti-war film because we get to see the war close up. Now, Howl's is not about this primarily, so he's still focusing kind of on the main aspects of the book. And in terms of like, I want to read the book to see what's different. Like Aly said, like it's just very different from what I understand. So it's like a lot of things are going to be different, but he keeps the framework of the book and then just does completely different things with it, I think. I
definitely want to read the book.
I think he definitely adds in this anti-war part, which I think is not as prominent in the book. And so like, he's not getting up close and personal, but yeah, Howl, and I think if you go in thinking of this as anti-war, you might be able to easier to see Howl's turning into a bird as a war type thing. Like he's turning into that as he loses himself fighting against this war. I guess is what is going for here. Like Howl is being this anti-war presence in the midst of these warring factions. Now, personally, the biggest part of the movie that doesn't make sense to me watching it is not the the ending. It's more annoying than not nonsensical in terms of like they just decide to end the war. But to me the movie never explains what Howl does when he goes through the black door.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
This is. I wish we're a little clearer, but I think it's clear. I think after looking back, the intent is that he's going to sabotage both sides of the war. this is kind of like what the Miyazaki's going for here. He's just trying to fight against the war in general. He goes through the black door. He goes to fight in his bird form against both sides of the war. Personally, I find this never really spelled out in the movie.
Yeah, we get like one really vague scene of him like supposedly in that dimension, whatever it is, but like it's not even 2 minutes long.
Yeah, you see him like interacting with the giant blimps and stuff, but it's, we don't really know what he's doing.
Hack wizards or whatever.
Yeah, the wizard. Yeah, and you have the wizards who are fighting for. I do think it's interesting that in this world, like the wizards are completely co-opted into the war as like war fighters. You see them like as kind of primary instruments of war. I think that's an interesting concept. But I mean, there are references to Howl being like losing, like just being exhausted emotionally, losing himself to his bird form, and all of this kind of in the context of him fighting against the war.
And those like pen names he uses, they're for both sides, right? I just want to clarify.
Yeah, like because each side, what is it? I guess they like drafted like wizards and stuff like that.
That's what I thought. I think my understanding is this is we only ever see the one side of the war, and he is drafted both times on one side of the war. Is my
that was my interpretation at first.
But I kind of like it better if it's different. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, I think as far as we know, the Suleiman's king is the one who conscripts him twice as two different personalities because they don't know it's him. Yeah.
Oh,
makes more sense. I thought narratively more boring.
Yeah, I thought he was like drafted by both sides, but
it'd be cooler.
It's possible that's up for interpretation. I'm not sure. That's just after researching it, that was kind of my impression based on reading stuff about it. But yeah,
I like that you said. Well, were you saying that you think that a distance perspective for war is like does work better than one that like focuses on people suffering?
For me, it does. A movie like Grave of the Fireflies is much more affecting than
I agree.
Like this.
I think it's just because then you like can personally like you can relate to it. I guess a little bit
annoyed
more.
Thinking about the fact that this came out in 2004. I mean, I was in 4th, 5th grade, so obviously I wasn't like politically aware of the war with Iraq. But we grew up during 9/11, and now I'm pissed at my 5th grade self for not thinking about this, like the distance perspective that we had during that war, and it just makes me mad.
Yeah, maybe as a criticism of our distance perspective to wars and a commentary on that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I think you think about this time period, 2004, Miyazaki adamantly against the Iraq War, but we think back now. We think back negatively on the war in Iraq. It was definitely seen as a positive thing in 2004 in the United States. It's a pretty radical movie to have one of the biggest animated films of the time be Miyazaki's giant anti-Iraq war commentary. Like think about it like that. It's pretty. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
You wish, on one hand, it's like, I wish it was a little bit clearer, the messaging and stuff. I mean, I think it's like there enough, the war sucks kind of commentary, which is, in our current state, we're, and maybe who just we personally are as people, at this point, like, it's like, oh yeah, war's bad. But like at this, most of the US watching this movie, it's like they're getting a clear anti-war theme when they're in like a pro-war mindset. So, it is a little, I think, radical. Although I think it should be noted, the Iraq war, I think, probably unpopular outside of the United States the entire time. It's just the United States where it would be seen like that. And so on one hand, you kind of want it to be even a little bit more prominent to nail it down. On the other hand, it does contrast a lot, or not, maybe at least not fit in super well with a lot of these other themes that are happening, which are really interesting, which we're going to discuss next. So I do like that he left room for these other aspects of the movie, which I think are some of the best aspects of the movie. So maybe he did find the right balance, as it's there and prominent enough, but also like leaves room for a lot of other cool things. Possible. But at the very least, I would have liked how it was doing a little clearer. But once you kind of think of it like that, I think the movie starts to make a little more sense. But like, what does that mean? He's just interfering with both sides. Like, what's his plan? Like, he's just going out there trying to just take down as many planes.
Well, and like he's so against the war. Like Howl's against the war, obviously. But then he's like out there. But what is he doing exactly when he does go out there? Like, I don't know. It's
he's
confusing.
just trying to take down the warplanes, I guess.
I guess.
I think
And
chaotic
doesn't
good.
care about the
chaotic good
casualties
would
because
be,
sure, that's
Yeah.
chaotic good, right?
Yeah,
Is
I
that-
mean, I think he's trying to prevent further casualties, and potentially these, there's probably a reason we don't see the ins and outs of the people fighting the war. We just see kind of these bird-like magicians instead.
There's like that one scene where I mean it's not really ins and outs, but like in the when they're going shopping or whatever, and then the bombs drop
Oh,
in
Yes.
the ocean.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I
the
think that's one of the
propaganda
best
flies
scenes of the movie. Honestly, you're
Yeah,
right.
I
That is really the most close we get. We see the
I'm annoyed. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
yeah. So it is there. There's some stuff there. You start to see a bombing a little bit up close, and then they probably retreat to the castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
How
the
about the
enemy propaganda. So I mean, I guess yeah, everywhere is a castle. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
everywhere is a castle? Is that a philosophical statement?
You know what I mean? Every country has a castle. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Okay, we can if it comes up, we can continue talking about the anti-war messaging. But there's also, I think, a lot else to talk about. This I don't know if this is a major topic, but the castle itself, obviously, a big part of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Visually extremely striking with the use of CG of the castle. I think. We talked about how Mononoke, Ghibli gets CG for the first time. It's maybe a little rough, but well integrated. Spirited Away, even better integrated, still a little noticeable. CG, I think, pretty well at this point, seamlessly integrated into Howl's Moving Castle.
I would
these
agree
computer
with that.
graphics.
Yeah. I just love that it's a castle. I don't know how I forgot the dub, but like when Sophie like when Turnip introduces her to the castle, she's like, "You call this a castle?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it should just be like Howl's moving, I don't know, weird mobile home." Like even on the inside, like when I watched this for the first time, I was expecting it to look like legitimately like a Disney castle or a real life castle, and it's just a house inside. So I was like, why is it a castle? I don't get it.
He lives in it.
So it's his castle.
Big
It's
enough
his castle.
building, I guess it's a castle.
Yeah, but it's like it looks
But
weird.
there seems
and
like
gross.
there's only one, maybe two rooms in there.
He had to add a bathroom, like when
They added a bathroom, yeah. They added a guest bathroom later. I find the scenes with the castle to be some of the most magical scenes. Once we start getting into the part of the movie where she's exploring the different exits and the colored wheel that leads to these different parts, I think this is like so engrossing at this point. Just like seeing it leads to all these places. The kid puts on this old man magic disguise, and we're getting you see Howl has all these personalities and stuff. It's once you get to that part of the movie, I'm super in.
Because we want that door. It's the Doraemon door, Dokodemo door, but like you only get 4 places.
Only for I don't know. Could he add more? He
He
changed.
did. He added the pink one.
Yeah.
And we never got to see what the other one was, which also annoyed me as a kid.
The black one or
The blue one, I think there was. I don't know what he changed the pink one from, but there were definitely 4, unless I'm remembering it incorrectly, and I need to watch it again in another 5 hours.
Yeah, I always be watching it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the all the exits, the scene when he moves the castle. I love that scene. I think that's pure magic.
The sequence of animation is just so good.
It's incredible, and I do think this movie is stunning and stunningly animated, like one of his absolute best Miyazaki's. Benefits from the modern technology, but also just gorgeous. And of course, these movies are significantly hand drawn, even if they incorporate computer graphics.
Mm-hmm.
The scene when she finally splashes water onto Calcifer to kind of like destroy the castle, and then it cut off the portals. I think that's great too. All these castle scenes, I'm really into in this movie, and I think it's
like
gorgeous.
where the castle falls apart too. Is that the scene you're talking?
When she takes him like out, and he's like, "Oh, like I should be the last one to leave," and then like soon as like he crosses the threshold, like everything just crumbles in. And I really enjoyed that scene. I don't know why.
It was really. Was that all CG?
I mean, I don't know. We have to go back and look. I think probably nothing's all CG except for maybe the castle, but I don't know. But yeah, it's incredibly striking visual, and it walking powered by Calcifer, who I have to say, we haven't talked enough about Calcifer to this point. I love Calcifer. I think
he's the best.
An iconic Miyazaki character that I don't consider enough to be part of Miyazaki's amazing set of characters.
You don't. I've never heard you bring up Calcifer before.
I don't think I remembered my love of Calcifer until watching it again now.
He's so great.
He's
also will say he's better in English. That's like one of the few
Is he?
times.
I'll probably make him sassier and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he is sassy in Japanese, but he's great in the English dub.
He's Billy Crystal. Okay.
Hey, all your bacon burn. That's such a good line.
Josh Hutcherson is Markle.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And freaking Christian Bale.
Christian Bale is Howl. Wow.
I can't get over that. The casting they do for these movies when they dub them is just insane to me.
At this point, for the modern Miyazaki movies, yeah, they're going all out. So Emily Mortimer is young Sophie. Gene Simmons, old Sophie. Should be noted in the original.
Oh my God.
In the original Japanese, Cheiko Baisho does both young and old Sophie.
Yeah, she is insane.
And she sings the end credits as well, yeah. She's
insane. Are you
she's
joking?
really good, yeah. I think this is one of potentially the best Ghibli performances.
Too. That's crazy.
Yeah, they have to, I mean, the fact that they have to separate that in most dubbed languages to two performances, I think speaks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, let's we can come back to Calcifer, I guess. But how about Sophie? I think is definitely one of the main topics I want to talk about next. And Sophie, just as a protagonist who is an old woman for a significant portion of this movie, I think is. I have to say, I think looking back on this movie now, assessing it, the most unique and distinctive element to me, I think, of Howl's Moving Castle is the seamlessness of Sophie's arc as an old woman she sometimes looks younger, she sometimes looks in between. It's so subtly done throughout the film.
I loved that. That was like I was fully captured by that, because some of the like transitions would just be so subtle, like maybe she's a little bit taller, or she's like got longer hair, or like just enough though, but it was, or her eyes. That was like one of the things that like I was always like, where her eyes at? Like what do we got going on? In I think we talk more about Takahata in terms of these weird weird distinctive animation choices. This is one of the most prominent Miyazaki ones for me, is just this complete integration of young and old Sophie throughout the film. It's striking enough that she is an old woman for most of the movie. That's striking, powerful, but her changing to kind of fit the themes and emotions of the scene, and as it continues kind of her journey to where she ends up at the end, where she is mostly young but also retains qualities of when she was older. I think it's I don't know, if not my favorite aspect of the movie, definitely like the most distinctive and probably the best part of the film, I think.
Yeah, agree.
I love that she just like fully accepts it too. She's like, all right, I'm an old woman now. Like, she's like, my clothes finally make sense, and like,
and my attitude does too. I mean, you have like a great from the book again about that whole thing, which is just perfect.
Yeah, let me read some Susan Napier passages on this movie's view of old age. So in general, she says through Sophie, Howl's Moving Castle deals unflinchingly with the pains of old age, an issue of huge concern in Japan, where the rapid aging of its population is viewed with alarm. At the same time, the movie uses fantasy to process fears of aging and death in an ultimately optimistic fashion. While it acknowledges the darkness of human nature, the movie's upbeat ending offers a collectivity that is diverse, loving, and supportive. The movie is a kind of Valentine to the director's older colleagues, especially his many older female staff members, demonstrating that old age can be liberating rather than diminishing. I think definitely some overall maybe themes that he's going for in his presentations of old age, as he himself is definitely getting older at this time. And somehow still going at it almost 20 years later, currently.
Oh my God. Is he back off of his retirement?
Yeah, he's making a lot. He's making a final movie. He's doing it.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, man.
The third final movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he retired between Spirited Away and Howl's technically, but I don't know. It's hard to keep track. But yeah, he's at least one or two retirements in at this point. And this is not the end of it. So just the view of old age. We've talked a lot about how Miyazaki is not afraid to present old women, or not, old women in terms of like grandmothers, and also just like middle-aged women. Like it's very radical in terms of, you think of Hollywood and how it's rare to see actresses getting parts past 30 or something. Like, not rare, but it falls off a lot. And Miyazaki consistently integrates non-young women into his films, and we have maybe the most striking example as his main character is partly not a young woman in this movie, however you want to think of it. I think this is in some ways a culmination of this themes of his integration of older women throughout his films, and also just on its own a commentary on old age, finding liberation in old age, like this talks about. Yeah, I think it's all very strikingly done.
I also like that if it was not at least like explicitly stated in the book, in the movie it's implied that like the curse is like still kind of up to Sophie, and that like her attitude determines what happens with herself. Like when she like wants to help Howl, I mean, I don't know if that's really a good thing. She turns younger. When she like acts more youthful, she turns younger. When she has like, I don't want to say less confidence, but when she's like less sure of what she wants to do or what's going on, she turns old, and it's like a back and forth, but it's always up to her. And like even the Witch of the Waste is like, I can't break the curse, like I can only cast it, who knows what's going to happen, vagueness. But like I liked how it was portrayed.
Yeah. So, I'll read a quote later that incorporates like questioning of the curse as one of these kind of aspects of the movie that is not explained, which I think is true. That the movie never really explains how we break Sophie's curse, if we do at all. But I will say I'm not bothered by this lack of narrative detail in terms of the curse.
Yeah, me neither.
Me neither.
You get a thematic sense that she is, it corresponds to her journey that she's going through, and that she is either overcoming it or integrating it into herself, whatever you want to look at it, kind of through her journey. And I think that is really gorgeous. Like, I think
could be both.
Yeah, I think probably both in a lot of ways. And I think like this is not something that needs to be explained. Like, and you can see how you arrive at, like, maybe there are some things that should be explained, but Miyazaki often does this, that he doesn't explain things and you don't think they need to be explained. And so the line is, I think, sometimes thin, but for me, this one is firmly on the side of doesn't need to be explained. And the curse, I think, along with the presentation of visually of her aging and de-aging throughout the movie is one of the strongest aspects. I have another quote from Susan Napier's kind of an interesting commentary on age and the different aspects of the movie that leads into some more general great commentary, I think, on this aspect. So she says, Kotani makes the radical suggestion that Sophie's real curse was a more insidious and earlier one, to be a young girl. It is, after all, young girls who are constrained by society and expected to behave in certain ways, such as being charming or flirtatious. When we first encounter Sophie, she seems to be rejecting that role, even insisting on wearing a dowdy hat in marked contrast to the gorgeous headwear available in her shop. But it is her metamorphosis into old age that allows her to reject the constraints of young femininity most definitively. Although Miyazaki has consistently shown young girls breaking this constrained paradigm in terms of both action and attitude, his previous shoujo characters were feminine and cute. In contrast, the elderly Sophie, with her protruding nose, wrinkled visage, and sagging, stumpy body, is decidedly not cute in the conventional meaning of the term. The director even includes a scene of her snoring by the fireside, an inconceivable image in any of his other young heroines. Even at the film's end, she retains the traits of self-reliance, compassion, and forthrightness that her metamorphosis had nurtured, symbolized by her retention of silver hair while the rest of her body regains its youth. So I think that analysis at the end is kind of the broad takeaway by the end of the movie, is she has retained what she has learned in her journey and is kind of symbolized by her hair color change. That's a move we've seen a lot recently, I think, in another animated movie.
Was this was that inspired by the Tangled? That was the one I thought of. I hate it.
I think if you're looking for animation influences, this hair color change is probably a big one on current animation. Yeah, totally. You're probably looking back to Howl's for that. Although, this isn't old enough that it would. I'm sure there's been some other hair color change.
I mean, it is now 16 years old. That's an old movie now.
Yeah.
That's an old movie now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 16. It's legal to drive.
Howls can drive.
Some states.
And in some states, it can get married. So
yeah, that too.
Markle is an adult now. Is that what's happening?
Yes.
I like that.
Oh, I loved Markle.
He's great. He's I didn't want to bring this up, but now I have to. That girl who comes into the shop when he's like disguised as the old man. I shipped them when I was a kid. She had like 2 lines, but I was
Allie,
like,
I was shipping it now watching.
It's not surprising.
I was like so
but, like,
sad that he has to look like an old man.
You know, maybe she'll get like an old lady costume and they can go on. Should be a witch in training. I like that Napier talks about like for the beginning of this quote that's like the curse was more her being a young girl at the time, and it's like my biggest problem with the movie, maybe the book if it's the same, is like these women are like from the beginning they're like, oh my god, it's Howl, oh my god, I love him, oh but don't go near him because he's going to take your heart, but oh my god, I love him, and it's back and forth, and I hate it. It annoyed me so much watching it for the first time, and it still annoys me now. It's just that's like such tea to say that like young girls are constrained by societal norms and they have to behave a certain way, they have to like want to get a certain guy but also like keep themselves distanced enough. Like it's just the worst, but the way she put it is fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna say she really like captured that like sense, because I felt that as well, that like, you know, like Sophie wanted to like she wanted to be a hat maker, and her sister's like, oh well, do what you want. She's like, this is what I want to do, like leave me alone. So
was it implied that like her dad died in the war, because she was like, I'm sticking here because dad, like the hat shop meant so much to dad, so it's like, oh, he's dead. And then when she freaked out like at that bombing scene, I was like, is she getting like not to be that person but war flashbacks,
like PTSD kind of
better
situation?
Thank you. I apologize.
I mean, possibly. Like I kind of got that sense that like her father wasn't like around anymore, and I was also really shocked because I never picked up that the one lady was her mom, and I was like,
sister. I thought that was her sister. She looked just like her sister
until she was just like, oh, Sophie. She's like, mom, and I'm like, what?
Like, what? Whomst?
Oh yeah. Wait, so that's her sister. Okay, so I was very confused by the family stuff.
It's confusing.
So her sister is the one who's like, you have to do what's best for you in the beginning, and her mom.
And then her mom is at the end.
Well, yeah, and her mom.
Even though to me they look like the same character.
They are like they look exactly the same. It's
are
really
they? I thought, or is it not? Are we sure it's not the sister pretending to be the mom or something?
No, because the mom, you see the mom in the beginning because she comes back and she's got that really crazy hat on.
I thought that was her sister too.
No, that was her mom.
Oh man.
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time on her family. Like it doesn't really. It's not important, I guess. But yeah, I was a little confused by that. Yeah, and I think in some ways, to close out the old age stuff, I think in some ways it's radical commentary to say like the real curse was youth, but I think it is totally fitting with this theme of that I do think is like very prominent in the movie of like it's her feeling liberated by being older. So I think in that ways it kind of fits that.
Okay, I'm looking at them side by side. I see the difference is basically the nose. The mom has a bigger nose.
But they look similar?
They look exactly the same. It's blonde hair, blue eyes, same pink eyeshadow.
So that's why I was
confused.
I'm
sorry. The sister has blue eyeshadow. That's the difference.
The sister is Letty, I think. I don't know who the mom's name is.
Letty.
Yeah.
The mom is Mrs. something or other.
Something. Okay.
Hatter.
There you go. Oh my god, really? I hate it.
Are they really Hatter? Oh my god.
Wow. Oh, it is. Wow.
Sophie Hatter. Okay, Aly brought this up. Let's talk about Howl as Miyazaki's #1 heartthrob character.
Did I bring that up? Was that me who brought that up?
You said you don't like in the beginning how like the girls all, so I think that, I think at its most generous, like the commentary would be this movie as and we don't, I have not read the book, and we're not analyzing the book, so we can think of that separately. But the movie, it starts within this framework that a lot of these kind of fantasy movies aimed at like teenage girls do, and that there's like this heartthrob type character, and so maybe it like works in the framework of that and subverts it. Like maybe you could think of it like that.
Still maybe.
We can talk about that. But Howl himself, interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really see this type of person in Miyazaki movies. This Edward from Twilight type character.
Oh my god! See, I was waiting for somebody to talk about that because he spies on her while she sleeps.
Did he really?
Yes.
Somehow it's less creepy.
That's the iconic Edward move.
He peeked open the curtain and she was just laying there all normal.
Oh yeah, and she was normal. So that's how you know that he knows that she's under a curse, which you're not 100% clear about. Okay. And that was the first time I realized that she's switching back and forth too. And
same.
The movie starts to integrate it a little more, which is it's really interesting. Okay, I don't want to. Now I'm going to think of him like Edward's going to be.
Please, because kind of is. Not really.
Know like how old he is.
That's the thing. He could be.
Yeah. And I should say that last aspect of and this will come up later, but the old age thing is that the Witch of the Waste, instead of like treating her like a villain when she's like revealed to be her true age is shown and she's forced to be her true age, she is treated with compassion and brought in like you ideally would treat the elderly. So I think that's part of it.
That has to be addressed, though. That's sad.
I think any other movie would kill her off, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Miyazaki does this sometimes. I think it's very radical that he would
still shady as heck throughout, like, even when she doesn't have magic, so I didn't like her.
Her, it's like she's just, her true nature is, like, on the surface, and she sees Howl's heart, and she's like, I still want to have Howl's heart. It's not in, like, a conniving way, but it's just like that's her desire still.
She just is an old creep now.
Yeah, so the reason I thought of that is because, like much like her, it's possible Howl was also being kept alive for a long time. April, what's your view on Howl after watching?
He was an interesting character. I feel like he was all over the place, which I was not like. I don't know.
It's conflicting because you think about Ghibli guys and you're like, who's the best? None of them are great. Not to be shady.
But I don't know. Like, you don't get a whole lot from him either, I feel like. Just that, like, he doesn't like war. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then...
bare minimum.
Yeah, like, bare minimum. And, like, it was... Like, the first thing they do is they're just like, oh, like, he's here. I wonder if he's in town. And they're like, oh, well, I heard he ate some girl's heart. And they're like, oh, well, I'm safe for whatever.
Yeah, because I'm ugly. Like, really? You're gonna come here? I hated that.
Yeah, because, well, so whatever, like, I heard, like, I, like, heard that, I was like, oh, so this is, like, going to be about, like, it's going to be, like, a Beauty and the Beast kind of thing, like, he's got to find his true, true beauty and accept others, or something like that, and then it, like, that was not the plot of the film at all.
Like, Stockholm syndrome, a thing that happens here because like she is forced to work for them because she has nowhere else to go, and then she falls in love with her like master or whatever.
Well, and I also love too because he's just like, who let her on the castle? And she's like, I let myself on, like,
which is also confusing to me because like when you're thinking about his relationship with Calcifer, how he's like essentially his heart. I mean, I guess spoilers for the super ending, but like. Wouldn't he be aware of everything that's going on in his house because he and Calcifer are connected? I don't get it.
Yeah, because they're connected like that. And I guess he's his heart, supposedly, but I don't understand, I guess, that connection. And maybe, like, whenever he ate Calcifer, and I was like, oh, look, he's eating his own heart? Like, does that mean he's free? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Howl is a character that suffers a little bit because of the plot stuff of the movie. Like we've talked about, you don't really know what he's doing. But I think, he's definitely this type of heartthrob, like, type of character. He's probably a lot of, like, people who watched when they were younger and, like, love this movie's kind of favorite. I think you'd probably get an emotional connection to the Howl type of guy.
I did relate to it whenever he was turning into green goo.
Yes.
I was like...
I love the line from Marco, like, I saw him do this once when a girl dumped him. He's, like, summoning dark spirit.
That was pretty fun. Yeah, and I think Hal is a character that is intended to come into focus kind of at the end when you get the big reveal in a super iconic scene when Sophie witnesses young Howl capturing the shooting star. And you see that Calcifer has his heart. And so he is a character who was heartless throughout this movie. He is... emotionally underdeveloped. He is, I think it relates to the appeal of a character like this, probably for a lot of women or people maybe when they're younger watching. It's like, oh, it's you reunite him with this heart, and he was mysterious, and now he can love, and he's more nurturing, and
That really reminds me of Twilight. Now that you're phrasing it that way, like it's so gross.
Yeah, and like I said, this framework comes from a book, and it's that type of generally the book, and I'm sure the book handles it in a subversive way too. But I think Miyazaki does his own twist on stuff with the character Howl. But I do think the character comes into focus a lot more when you realize he was lacking a heart, underdeveloped, I think, throughout the film, and Sophie helps him get his heart back, and that's part of their love story.
I hate
Don't
that.
think that. That's like all. That's the thing when I think about like Miyazaki heroines. It's like they subvert that all the time. So I'm like, why is he doing this? And why is he making it a specifically like non-shoujo type character? Like, why? Why are you saying
Kinda
once we grow up,
that
that's
it's
what
not
we're
a
supposed to
typical
do?
character. Yeah, it is true. I mean, that Miyazaki does not do this type of story, and it is striking that Sophie and Howl kiss twice in this movie, which has like never happened before in a Miyazaki movie.
That's also because they're older. It's less PG because they're older.
Yeah, and I think we've read several quotes, I think, throughout talking about romance in Miyazaki movies. He's just not interested in romantic angles of things. He's so.
But then you have this movie, so it's like, what?
But I think this movie also like it showcases that like romance isn't his thing.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
Because he's like, y'all like want romance. I gave it to you. You hate it? Cool.
Yeah.
Like I won't do it
He
again.
portrays it in a negative way, maybe.
Not purpose.
I think it's a fairy tale type thing that he's playing into. He's, for some reason, as he's gotten older, he's more open to this. There's a kiss in one of his later movies, I guess, getting into that vague spoiler territory, but for The Wind Rises actually also features that. And
I thought you were talking about Ponyo.
No, I don't remember if there's a kiss in Ponyo. I assume not. The kiss at the end of Wind Rises. So like he moves in this direction. And there's like a ton of documentaries about the making of Wind Rises. So you see him like kind of talk about like struggling with like, oh, I guess I should make them kiss. Like I don't normally do this, but I guess this is like the thing that is more appealing now. And like
that's
his best
kiss scene though, so that's good. He improved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's his pinnacle for this type of thing. But Sophie and Howl have some when he's a bird and she's
that's a good one.
Him.
I think the hug between them was the cutest thing.
Yeah,
and just at the end during kind of the epilogue scene, I think is really good. So yeah, so neither of you are big Sophie and Howl shippers. Sounds like
I'm just not a big Howl person. I think I was when I was younger, and I do like the twist that like she saw them in the past and then he finds her in the future, like, oh, there you are, I was looking for you. Like you think it's an act, but it's actually real. And it's like, oh my god, Shyamalan twist. But I don't know, he just as a character, like you said, he's not fleshed out enough in the movie to make me like really feel something for him.
Yeah.
Which I think is purposeful to a certain extent.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But maybe that lessens the emotional attachment at the end to them.
Yeah. Also because he's just a drama queen.
Yeah, he gets real upset about his hair, and I think it's hilarious.
That's the best part of Howl, honestly.
It is, but it's also the one that makes me want to date him the least, so.
Yeah, I was like, it's a great moment, but it makes me less attracted to him, because he can't be freaking out about his hair, because we're going to freak out about my hair. That's all we know.
Yeah, who's the Howl and who's the Sophie in the relationship? That's really
Jesus Christ, that's going to be the
It's the new thing, yeah.
Whatever, I'll take a page out of Sophie's book and just dye it gray.
It's a good
hair
move
looks great
at the end, yeah. I think this is Miyazaki's preeminent ship. I think this is the ship for Sophie and Howl. Unless you want to count Whisper the Heart as Miyazaki's ship too, then I think
that's okay. But that's a good one.
That's actually a good, But no, I think this is it plays this like certainly the role of Howl as kind of like a womanizer and the fangirling of like the pretty guy and who actually harms them and like her like nurturing him back and how like of course those all of those dynamics do not currently appeal to the type of people that we are. So like of course, okay. Understood.
But in 2004, sure, I was into it. I was really into it.
So certainly, like people as kids, we're gonna be into this. And then also, I just like given like if you could accept all that, which you don't have to, but if you can accept all of that as it is, I think really well presented at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not attracted to him. So it's hard for me.
He's definitely Miyazaki's like hottest guy. Come on.
Ashitaka is right there.
Ashitaka. Okay, that's a good point.
He's my fave, and also Pazu. Don't you love him?
Yeah, they're getting a lot of his characters are younger, but I wouldn't say Pazu. For some reason, Pazu now is reminding me of Josh Hutcherson. And,
voice him in the dub.
He should. I don't think he did. He should have.
He looks like him, kind of.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking. Quickly, Markle. Yeah, Markle's great. I love Markle.
Yeah, he's great. Markle. I do think Calcifer is probably my favorite character. I want to talk about him more, even though there's not a lot to talk about. He just has a lot of great one-liners.
He's I love when he becomes like a raging demon that is like threatening, but he's still kind of sweet.
But I love that Sophie. She's just like, I'll pour water on you. Like,
yeah, and she threatens, and then she follows through eventually.
Kill somebody.
Yeah. I'm not putting up with this.
Yeah,
that's a great in a movie that has narrative flaws. That's a really well seated moment after she threatens that, and then not for the purpose of getting back at him, but for the purpose of saving everyone, has to pour water on him.
The twist, the Shyamalan twist.
I thought the timelines were the Shyamalan twist. I mean, the whole movie is kind of a Shyamalan twist in that it doesn't really make any sense, and it's just happening. But
it's like a fever dream he had.
It's just a fever dream at the end, really. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And to say that the ending doesn't make sense, I think I said it before, but there are iconic scenes at the ending, you know. It's like, I do think the catching the star is a scene highly remembered. There's, you know, the castle falling apart and stuff. Like, there's, everything's great on its own, you know, just maybe putting it together narratively, but like we're trying to view it poetically as discussed. But yeah, Calcifer.
I'm just like, because talking about Calcifer and staying on the plot of the end, like the castle is flying, but Howl doesn't have Calcifer like as his magic heart. So how is he using magic?
Calcifer opts in to power the house at the end.
Right,
he chooses to stay because that's his family now, which is the next thing I'll talk about. But yeah. So
characters.
I mean, yeah, we can get to that in a second. But yeah, Calcifer, I think, is comparing it to Kiki again. He's the GG of the movie.
At first, I thought in English they were voiced by the same person, just because they're like begrudging old men.
Similar characters, yeah.
They're both very funny. And I think, well, no, in Japanese he does have a lot of good one-liners still. I remember in Kiki they gave him a lot of more room to ad-lib in the dub.
In Kiki they changed it a lot with the dub. Yeah, I don't know about this movie if they also changed it Calcifer a lot. But yeah, he's very sweet yet a little bit sarcastic yet.
She likes my spark. He's adorable. I want a Calcifer plushie now.
I don't think that I've never seen a Calcifer plushie.
Yeah, I've never have either. I've seen Gigi and I've seen all the other little cute dudes, but I haven't seen Calcifer before.
Like a plushie of a fire, I guess. But
yeah, firebender.
It's probably a statue or something.
Or just an actual fire. Just put googly eyes on the wood.
There you go.
In the Ghibli Museum, you get a ticket for the short film they show, and the ticket is one of Miyazaki's movies. And one of the ones I got was Howl and the fire.
Oh,
The
nice.
fires. So I guess I have a little Calcifer thing.
So you got to keep it. Nice.
Yeah, you get to keep the tickets. Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, that one of the Howls is one of them. I don't know. Is there anything else to say about Markle?
He's just so cute.
I know.
I love that he was like, I don't know. He's just very precious. He's not like he's not a teenager, but he's not like a brat either, obviously, because he's working for Howl, I guess. But he's just so adorable. I love that he loves Sophie.
And he's kind of like, I guess he's like the like opposite of Sophie, because even though he's so young, like he obviously has like a sense of responsibility and like respect and everything like that. So just because like I guess he manages like spells and stuff and like goes about and does business and manages the money.
Yeah, seriously. Wow. He is like very mature for his age.
So he's like super mature for his age, and he's just comfortable with that. And it's kind of like that's who like Sophie could have been, is because, you know, she's very much like an old woman in a young woman's body, but then she's in an old woman body.
Yeah, he's the old man in a young man's body. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he comes
Benjamin
across
Button
very
style.
responsible. Yeah, is he a Benjamin Button situation? Maybe.
Yes.
But then he also has like those moments where he's very much a kid. Like he's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Eventually
Sophie,
he
don't
opens
leave
up to
me.
Sophie.
Yeah,
and,
he's like, "You're my mom now." It's so cute.
It's good. Okay, that'll lead us into the quote. Okay, so let's talk about this as like a found family at the end, as I know Aly loves found families, and I think this is one of the
Who
most iconic.
does?
This is one of the most iconic found families ever. I think at the end of this movie. And
Oh, totally.
Okay, I have a very long quote from Susan Napier. There's many aspects I think are really interesting of this. So let's read it all, or we could potentially stop and talk about things as it goes. But overall, talking about the found family presented at the end of Howl's by Susan Napier. She says, as previously noted, many critics dismiss Howl's explicitly happy ending, regarding it as artificial and sentimental. Critics point out that there's no real explanation for the war's end beyond the king's advisor, Madame Solomon, declaring, let's put an end to this silly war. In fact, at the time of the movie's release, the Asahi Shimbun newspaper published an article detailing 3 riddles of Howl. How does Sophie's curse get removed? Why was the castle reconstructed? And how did the war get settled? The director does not provide clear answers to any of these questions, leaving some viewers dissatisfied with the film's lack of resolution. What Miyazaki does offer at the movie's end is a vision of resistance to the enemy of modern society in the form of the family that Sophie and Howl create around them. This new family incorporates the very old, the Witch of the Waste, the very young, Howl's boy apprentice Markle, and even a pet, the dog Keen, not to mention a magical creature, Calcifer, returning to the family because he misses its other members.
Okay, I appreciate that it's a resistance to the enemy. I don't know how to pronounce that, of modern society. That's a good take.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and it's the move of Calcifer, I think, returning at the end is really sweet.
That's very
While family issues are important and contentious around the world, it is reasonable to suggest that Japanese society has particular difficulties in this regard. As Sugita points out, the Japanese family underwent major shifts in the last 2 decades of the 20th century. While the divorce rate in Japan remained far lower than other industrialized countries, relations between the generations grew increasingly negative, leading to such phenomena as the hikikomori, young people, usually but not always male, who stayed at home with their parents but refused to interact with them or with the outside world. During this period, youth violence also rose, and the media detailed truly shocking stories of bullying and abuse by young people whose families apparently had no idea or concern about what they were doing. It is the state of toxicity within the family that the director is clearly attempting to combat in Howl. While Howl is hardly a textbook hikikomori, his narcissism, his lack of responsibility, and isolation at the beginning of the film suggest a socially unevolved young man.
Yes.
The other characters also initially seem to have little interest in family relationships, though Sophie rather perfunctorily visits his sister Letty at the beginning of the film. Miyazaki emphasizes the power of family ties with the scene inserted late in the film in which Howl's young apprentice Markle asks Sophie whether they are a family. Her reply is strongly affirmative, and we see Markle clutching tightly to her skirts in a gesture that suggests both desperation and relief. Sophie's taking in of the now virtually senile Witch of the Waste is also an element added by the director. Her kindness to her former enemy not only emphasized Sophie's developing maturity and compassion, but also suggests a model of acceptance and love towards infirm and elderly people. Whether Sophie is actually capable of magic herself, her ability to see the best in people, from Howl to Calcifer to the Witch, suggests a form of special talent.
Yeah, that's some good tea.
So then, referring to the empathy, I think, and compassion she learns at the end. My main, a great commentary, I think, on Miyazaki. This is totally a Miyazaki move, trying to comment on family in Japan and family relationships and general relationships. I just want to talk about Howl as a hikikomori.
Yeah,
which is,
seriously.
I love this take. I love
That's the best take I've ever seen about him, because when I was younger, everyone was like really into him, and I was like, I don't see the appeal, and now this makes so much sense. He's a hikikomori.
I wonder to what extent this is intentional. Maybe not specifically, but presenting him as that type of person.
In the book, he's also, I know he's obnoxious in the book because my friend has pointed that out to me many a time. Like, he's just a stupid boy. No offense to boys. Like, he is obnoxious, and it makes sense.
Howl specifically stays like in his room and does not want to go to the meeting with Suleiman, and eventually like trails her. But
well, then he also gets mad because he doesn't want people to go in his room and touching his stuff.
That's a classic hikikomori move. Yeah. You can't go in my room. Oh man, Howl I think is a lot more sympathetic if you think of him as a hikikomori.
Is he though?
I think so. He's not a like womanizing like guy.
Yeah,
Like
that's true. That's a good
he's
point.
just
But
some nerd who has social problems. You
there
know?
is like so much terrible stigma against Hikikomori. You know that. Everybody
Yeah.
knows it.
But he, and I think the main aspect of this is his undeveloped. Undeveloped socially, which I do think is a legitimate part of the movie, and I think that totally plays into that characterization. So I really think
Yeah.
that's
He
interesting.
Talks about how like his uncle would visit him, or no, if that was his uncle's study. Actually, I can't remember. I assumed he was like always alone except for when his uncle came to teach him magic. So it's like implied that he never really got like
He was never socialized properly.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what the movie's trying to talk about, and so we're commenting kind of on those types of people with Howl and how Sophie interacts with them, and she has this grand found family that at the end is together with all these many different types of people, which I do think it's a really beautiful ending.
Mm-hmm.
With mom and dad who kiss on the castle,
Yeah.
Howl and Sophie.
That's the thing. Even if you don't really like Howl and Sophie or their dynamic or whatever, it's still a nice thing that everybody comes together, and it's like a lot of different people who were kind of at odds in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
it's also one of those things where like maybe if your family is broken, you can still find that companionship
Mhm.
like elsewhere, and
Yeah.
and not always in like the people that you expect. Like I thought it was very like endearing how they were calling the Witch of the Waste the grandma at the end.
Yeah.
I was like, and everyone was calling her grandma too, and she was like, "I'm grandma," like.
Grandma.
Yeah. Okay. I love all that. I want to talk about the Witch of the Waste and Suleiman because we haven't talked about that part of the movie as
And
much.
the
So
stupid
Oh
dog.
yeah.
the scene and the dog, I guess, Heen.
Oh, the
So
pup.
the scene when this is the part of the movie when I was like, wow, I remember this. I didn't even remember it was from the movie, but I'm having like these emotional kind of resonance. So when we go to the large steps and they have to walk up the steps, and the Witch of the Waste cannot like do it, and she's trapped, and then she's like put in the chair, and she's like stripped of her powers, and then also the part when Sophie I guess Suleiman confronts Sophie and Howl, and they have these like changing landscape, and they're like high up in the sky, and there's like shooting stars all around them. I just think it's so magical that part.
Yeah.
The stairs thing, like it's so iconic in my mind and has a strong emotional resonance. This is like I'm like, is this like big fat shaming of
I
like,
was
Witch of the
wondering,
Waste?
Because I still think, I mean, it's
I
kind
thought
of a funny scene. I don't think that's a good thing to say, but I was laughing at like some of the lines.
I thought it was more of like a take of like how like like older like generation would like are lazier, and so like, and even like the Witch of the Waste is just like, well, how are you like able to get up all of the stairs? And it's like, well, Sophie's not really an old woman, like she's just cursed by you, so, or she has a spell put on her by you, but she's still like young, like technically, so she is that much more capable kind of thing. But even though like she got up the stairs first and everything like that, she still like waited behind almost and was like, okay, like,
Yeah,
are you
helped
coming?
her.
Like,
Yeah.
I liked how
I
she
mean-
was cheering her on. It made me
yeah,
laugh.
she was like cheering her on, but negatively, like, oh, you call yourself a witch? You can't even get up the stairs. Like,
Yeah, I think probably in classic Miyazaki fashion, it's a commentary on how the Witch of the Waste does magic and doesn't work for herself, and so now she has to actually do like some work for herself and not just magic it, and she can't do it, and she's too, to me, definitely, I think comes across into a little bit as badly in terms of her being like too fat to get up the stairs. I don't.
Totally.
I think you have to probably not think of it in that capacity for it to work.
You have to think of it as that she's a capitalist who has people do things for her, and then when she has
I
something
guess
done
so,
for
yeah.
herself, that she can't do it because she's
the shadow henchmen who are
too much money.
Yeah,
Too
a
much
commentary on rich people or something like that. It's quite still like an iconic aspect or part of the movie, regardless, I guess. But yeah, it's complicated feelings about that. And then just them confronting Suleiman. I want to say quickly about Suleiman. I think something that distinguishes Howl's from some of Miyazaki's potentially quote-unquote better movies. Suliman is a character that is a Lady Eboshi in Mononoke, or any of these, or Adola in Castle in the Sky, and yet she is like just not really a person in this movie. She's not really a character. Like, this is the character that should be that type of character, but there's no effort put into her characterization in this movie.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't like that happens, but I know she's not, like, is she supposed to be relevant?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the relative to what? Miyazaki's making his own story here, so I think she's in more of a villainous role as the king's magician. She's also serves as like a king surrogate and a surrogate for the person starting the war. But I think in his other movies that are potentially more complex in some aspects, this character is seen in a nuanced light, whereas here she's pretty straight villainous. Although I think you sympathize her when you learn that she's like Howl's mentor and stuff, and maybe seems like a cog in the machine in her own right. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot going on here, and a lot of other characters in Sophie's like found family and stuff, and we don't spend time on Suliman. Maybe instead, Witch of the Waste. Maybe you could see her as that type of character this time. I also don't think there's really that level of complexity with her, but I think it is.
Is
really
it supposed to be Sophie though? Because she could be both.
Yeah, I mean, Sophie is kind of both the shoujo protagonist and the iconic older character in the movie. So I think that kind of fits this. Yeah, and so maybe there's extra work that has to be done with Sophie's characterization, so there's less time to spend on other characters too. Maybe you could see it that way. But yeah, just Witch of the Way. Yeah, we talked about Witch of the Way staying on board and being this. Being this character with it. And similar to No Face being part of their team after being the villain in Spirited Away. I think that's kind of a move for Miyazaki, and I do think it's really interesting when I like that move when that happens,
but I didn't like her. Period.
Yeah.
I think it's done well though.
Yeah, it's like when she's stripped of, similar to No Face. How about this? When she's stripped of the things that make her toxic, the magic that is supporting her toxicity. Once No Face is in the wrong environment, once you take them away from that, they become more sympathetic, kind of harmless people.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Witch of the Waste more of doing it of her own accord, I guess, from our perspective. And
hey, I literally wanted to bring up Catra. She got out of a toxic environment. Let's move on.
Witch of the Waste. Yeah, we don't really know much of her backstory beyond that to know how she got to this position.
But also, I want to go back to Solomon for like 2 seconds, because we were talking about we don't know why the war ended. I remember when she was talking to Sophie about Howl, she was like, I'm sad that he left me. I thought he was going to be my heir. So I was like, is she ending the war so like she can like coerce him into being the new king or something? Now that I'm thinking about it, that's also just not so good. We needed more of her, but there was no time.
Yeah, there's that notion when Howl was her prodigy, and I didn't get the impression from the end she expected Howl to come back to her. But it's true. Possible.
But it also seemed like she was more accepting of that fact at the end. I think so. Versus like in the beginning, because it seems like everyone's like just trying to get their hands on Howl, and but then like at the end, everyone's like, just let him do whatever he wants.
He's gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I do think they're more accepting of that at the end. The turnip head, I think he's turnip head in the dub, turnip in the sub.
Yes,
it's both. I think.
Yeah, he's I like Turnip. My favorite scene with Turnip. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Quite like Turnip helps them do the laundry outside.
I loved that scene.
It's really, it's just really good.
Yeah, he really enjoys doing the laundry.
Yeah. For some reason, I really love that scene.
I like when he brings Sophie the umbrella.
Yeah, that's good.
I just don't like that he was in love with her and that she had to kiss him to break the spell. I'm sorry.
He's very accepting right after, though. Oh, she doesn't love me. Okay, I'll go end the war then.
Great. But he makes a face.
If Sophie did love him, would he have not ended the war?
Yeah. He's
like,
really
I'll kill everyone for you, my love.
Yeah, he is really respectful. It's weird. It's like, Sophie goes kisses everyone at the end. Turnip turns into another person in love with her. Okay, sure.
Right. He makes a face when she and Howl are making out, though.
I mean, he's allowed to make a face.
He's in love with her.
He's allowed to have feelings. I know.
He can have a
They're
face.
They're back on another man.
Right in front of him. Damn. That's rough.
He's like, I just professed my love to you and told you I was going to end the war, and you're going to kiss another
maybe they're
man.
being a little.
Get a room.
Yeah. Is she moving into Howl's room in the castle? Is that what's happening?
I don't think he'd let her in.
he's still a Kikoboni even when they're together. He's like, no, you're not going into my room.
Yeah,
I like it. Okay.
You're still the cleaning lady first. No, that's terrible.
Oh no. Oh no.
That's terrible.
But like, speaking of the cleaning, I mean, we talked a lot in Spirited Away how Miyazaki's, and throughout this podcast, Miyazaki's themes of finding self-identity and things that are important about yourself through hard work. I think, again, with her becoming the cleaning lady, doing hard work throughout the castle, she's like finding her place, finding things about her. It's not like in service of Howl or for Howl or anything. It's just like she's doing it because she wants to, and it's important to her. That's kind of always what Miyazaki's going for with this type of theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's mostly successful here. I didn't have too much issues with that watching.
It's just an excuse for her to be there, and then
that's kind of how it starts. And then she finds meaning in it and stuff, and more finds meaning in the work. One scene I want to mention, speaking of scenes I love, is the when we go to Howl's secret garden. All the flowers are on there.
Yes.
And the water. It's a beautiful scene.
Gorgeous. And then also, like, again, with the bombing, one of the best depictions of the war when you do see a single airship go down, like, or you come into where their sacred space, and how the contrast of the violence of that and the peacefulness and tranquility of his garden, I think, is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and a lot of these scenes are towards the end, and so are these really good, these really great scenes towards the end. What else haven't we talked about? With these scenes,
we did talk about you said the scenes where they take the magic away from the Witch of the Waste, and then when Solomon confronts Howl and Sophie, that just like it felt like a bad trip, but it was like beautifully done.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Like, I mean, I want to like, were those actual words that the like stick figures were singing? Is creepy as heck.
Cool. She's the figures to try to like take away or like subdue him or something. And, Sophie helps him break out of the trap. Those are some of my favorite scenes, definitely.
And in the iconic scene, not the flashback, the like, what is it? The timeline scene where she like goes into a black hole, Back to the Future. It's just cool. Was that CG? I'm not sure.
I don't know. She goes to witness the catching of the star, and and goes back, and
then falls in the grass. I thought it was like really well done, very beautiful. I'm just confused as to how it was done.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. We could talk about this as another Miyazaki European kind of fantasy world. We've talked about that in the past, but he does that a lot. Phobia, Europe.
Yeah. There's a word for it. I'll find out what it's called. No.
Like that.
Hold on, I'll find it.
And then I think we talked about the ending. I want to talk about Hisaishi's score. This is kind of the last major thing to talk about. What's the term?
Teaboo.
Teaboo?
Yeah.
Why? What's the T for?
British culture.
Oh, for like tea, like having tea. Okay.
There's a different term. That's not
when
the
you
one
say there's a term for it, you meant like a slang word. Okay. Like, I thought you were I'm going to look up the academic word for.
Well, you know me. I don't know academic things. This is like slang.
That was more in line. Yeah, that was more in line with what I should expect. Okay, I want to talk about Joe Hisaishi's score. This is a very beloved score for Howl's Moving Castle. This is, I think, potentially one that people would cite among his best work. And I haven't listened to it as much. I had a lot to say about the Spirited Away score. That's one I've heard a lot more. But I tried to listen through it to note some highlights. The biggest thing for me was the reoccurring theme of Sophie and Howl's theme, or what you might identify as the main theme of the movie, depending. But it's just in many, many tracks on this soundtrack. It's part of Merry-Go-Round of Life, which is the opening on it. That establishes a few themes throughout. It gets A Walk in the Skies. We didn't mention the scene when she meets Howl and magically they walk together above the city, which I think is a great one. Yeah. And that plays there. We have Sophie in Exile, Unspoken Love, The Flower Garden. I mentioned that scene. Love Under Fire, Sophie's Castle towards the end. So those are all scenes with that recurring theme through them, which I think is a great musical component. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of reprisals, especially when they change in mood. It's like, I love music, man.
She does a lot of them, for sure. So I wanted to note Saliman's spell, Return to the Castle, which is the music that plays during this part we're talking about when Howl and Sophie confront, or Saliman confronts and traps them, and they're like through the sky and stuff. I think that's a great one. The Boy Who Swallowed a Star. Yes. The kind of the end, just the ending to the movie.
Underrated. Because everyone just
whole,
remembers merry-go-round, whatever. But
Yeah.
the whole movie has a lot of great music.
Yeah, and then the end credits is partly merry-go-round also. Its own thing, I think, are gorgeous too. Yeah, a lot of the music towards the end. Yeah, The Boy You Swallowed to start, then Silent Moon Spell, and then yeah, all these gorgeous romance theme ones throughout. It's a really good soundtrack, I will say. There's a lot of songs too.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
this one. Okay. Is there, April, anything on your minds that we've not talked about Howls?
No, not really. I am curious to like rewatch it now, especially like everything we talked about, because some things I'm like, okay, that kind of makes more sense, or at least like now I know what to look out for in terms of like rewatching it. I'd be interested to read the book and see how it compares, but I'm lazy.
Such a mood.
Reading. This is a movie podcast. Reading.
Is there?
Yeah. What is reading?
I do my most reading in preparation for this movie podcast. I have to read the books about the.
Yeah, but those are good analysis books.
Any Heen the dog thoughts?
Oh, please.
He was a good boy.
Was he
yeah.
though?
No.
He activates the broadcast only at the end when he knows that Suleiman will see the error
Yeah.
of the ways.
That's it. That's the only time.
What a good boy.
The bird working for the bourgeoisie, but a dog.
I like that
Yes.
she thinks he's Howl, and then it's like, no, it's just my dog. And
Yeah,
he's
that's
lazy.
funny.
He didn't
Who
get
was
the-
guiding you here?
Yeah. He was good regardless. He's not the best guy. He's good though. Yeah. Good
All
boy.
dogs are good. That's true. He was a good boy.
That is true. Aly, anything else from Howls?
Not that I can think of. Same. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't like it, but it is definitely not one of my favorites. But I think I have to watch it again as a anti-war movie, because I did my rewatch before I looked at the outline, and then seeing that I was like, oh Lord, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, watch this in the context of Miyazaki's pronouncement against the Iraq War. See how it plays
Yes.
from that lens.
I'm curious because I think I'm gonna like it a lot more now with the propaganda flying around. I don't know. It was good.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I this isn't the top of my list on Miyazaki movies, but I want to give this movie its due as an iconic
And
Miyazaki movie.
And I think that, like, yeah, like, it's not my favorite Miyazaki movie, but I can definitely, like, see why this would be someone's favorite movie.
Totally.
So, like, yeah, it's not to my taste, but it's still, like, a very well done movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that checks out, right? Like, even there's just so much here to potentially latch onto, and you can, especially if you can just view it from this thematic sense, which I think we view a lot of things we talk about in the podcast. Primarily, we try to view it from a thematic sense. I think this movie is definitely enhanced if you're kind of turning off that narrative.
Yeah.
Part of your brain, and I think that's a key, and also if you buy into the grand Sophie Howell love story, I think it's going to play a lot better too. But even without it, I mean, just Sophie's journey, I think, is such a great thing to latch on to. The presentation of her character. So I think all in all, like, I came in with a little bit of an anti-Howl bias to this whole process, this whole Ghibli rewatch, and because I had these like, oh, it doesn't make any sense, yada yada. You'll hear that a lot. I think I come out of it with a much greater appreciation for Howl, as this is a gorgeous, very rich movie with a lot going for it. And I do think maybe it's one of the ones which I would most want to rewatch, just because it's so visually striking, so many like really good scenes, which I do want to see again. So I think that's speaks well to it too. Its rewatchability.
Mm.
Okay. Any final comments? We good on Howl's Moving Castle?
We good.
Yeah, Gucci.
We good.
We Gucci.
Okay. Is that a Europe thing that we can?
Oh God! Wow, I didn't think of that. I'm still trying to find the real
is it
term
though?
for a European weeaboo, but I'm not going to be able to find
It's
it.
not a Tiaboo. I like
No,
Tiaboo.
there's
I know.
there's another one. I'll find
It
But
was
I
funny.
will say, I think that this one is more set in like a German like village.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's one that's the like British one. I'm trying to find the overall European one. It says Slavaboo. Oh, because Slavic. That's so stupid.
Miyazaki went to parts of France in research for this movie. More like rural France. I do think Germany's not a bad call, but towards that side of France, yeah. So to scout location
like,
for the movie.
Do we know when you went for Kiki?
Kiki?
Sweden.
Oh,
Kiki.
nice. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's, I mean, like not the same part of Europe, but he went location scouting to Europe and kind of central-ish. I don't know. So yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities there. Comparing, like, if you want to compare Howls and Kiki, I think that's really hard because they have a lot of
that's why when you guys brought
they
that
have a lot
up,
of
I was
different
like,
great things going
how
for them.
is it comparable? Like I couldn't think of it.
Just that the music feels very similar.
Yeah.
Like,
the framing.
Yeah,
is,
the framing.
And
what he
also,
does with them is,
they
and also
involve,
just the rich main characters too. I think.
Yeah,
that too. And they both involve magic. I have I don't know magic and witches on the brain, so this was a good rewatch.
Yeah, losing Amity watching.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Every podcast has Lumity.
Of course, yeah. People don't know what that is. They're listening to this. They have no idea. They're listening to the separate feed. They don't know what this is.
It's fine.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. Let us know what you thought of Howls and all your thoughts on it. overlyanimated.com. Find all the ways to contact us. Give us your thoughts on Howl's Moving Castle. Consider supporting us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, especially our patrons of the podcast, Ryan. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, Needle, and Phoenician. The Ghibli Rewatch continues as we are firmly in the post-Spirited Away, post-Howls era now, if you want to think of it like that. Next is Tales from Earthsea, Goro Miyazaki's first film. If you thought there's criticism of Howls out there, wait till we get to Tales from Earthsea, so we will dive into that.
Man.
Probably similar criticisms of the narrative being thin, but I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm interested to see if I gain a greater appreciation for Tales from Earthsea. Yeah, and then Ponyo, as mentioned. So there's, yeah. I mean, we're past the ones which I have a super big attachment to. So we're gonna get into some, to try to find appreciation for these later Ghibli films as we continue here. Okay. I think that's it for Howl's Moving Castle. Thank you for listening, guys. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.